Let's start with the tough truth. Most of us have no idea how much of our energy is rooted in anxiety rather than clarity, especially when we're dealing with someone emotionally unavailable. Not just the obviously distant ones, but the subtle ones too. The ones who smile, who engage, who say the right words, but whose presence always feels slightly out of reach. You know the feeling, the constant guessing, the emotional push and pull, the quiet ache of trying to connect with someone whose walls are invisible but impenetrable. And if you're not careful, you end up spending your energy not on love, but on decoding, on analyzing, on performing emotional gymnastics to feel seen. The truth is, many of us confuse connection with pursuit. We think closeness comes from effort, from proving our worth, from showing that we care enough. But that's not connection. That's anxiety disguised as devotion. The more anxious we become about losing someone, the more we start leading with fear. It seeps into everything: our tone, our timing, our body language, even our silence. That anxiety becomes our emotional scent, and people who fear closeness can smell it instantly. Avoidant people, consciously or not, are wired to detect pressure. They sense it like static in the air. It's not what you say that pushes them away. It's what your energy communicates beneath the words. You say, "I'm fine," but your tone says, "Please don't leave." You text, "No worries," but your body tenses, your chest tightens, your nervous system screams, "I can't lose this." And here's the paradox. The more that fear leads, the more you unconsciously recreate the very distance you're trying to close. Because what feels like connection to you feels like threat to them. So let's get clear. The most powerful shift you can make isn't strategic, it's internal. It's learning to lead with secure energy. Not perform it, not fake it, but embody it. That means your sense of self-worth isn't hanging on how someone else responds. It means love is a preference, not a necessity for survival. It means you can offer warmth, presence, and care without needing it mirrored back instantly to know you're okay. That is emotional security. Calm confidence without pretense, grounded openness without grasping. And here's the catch. Most people try to look secure instead of becoming secure. They suppress their needs, act indifferent, or convince themselves they don't care. But that's not security. That's fear wearing a cool mask. Real secure energy doesn't say, "I don't need anyone." It says, "I can need someone without losing myself." It's the difference between guarding your heart and grounding it. Think about it like this. Imagine a lighthouse. It doesn't chase ships. It doesn't move to be seen. It simply stands, solid, luminous, consistent. The ships that are ready for its light find their way to it. The ones that aren't drift away. But the lighthouse doesn't dim itself to follow them. It knows its purpose. It shines because that's what it was built to do. That's secure energy. Now, if you're dealing with someone emotionally avoidant, this analogy matters even more because avoidant individuals didn't wake up one day and decide to fear closeness. They learned it. Usually, it starts early. Maybe emotional needs were met with rejection or ridicule. Maybe vulnerability was punished or ignored, so they adapted. They built invisible walls that said, "It's safer to rely on myself." Over time, that strategy became identity. Their nervous system equated closeness with danger. Love started to feel like pressure, and pressure meant pain. So when you approach them with anxious energy, over-explaining, over-giving, overdoing, they don't register love, they register risk. Because to their body, emotional intensity feels like invasion. The harder you try to pull them close, the stronger their instinct to retreat. It's not that they don't care, it's that their wiring mistakes your care for control. But here's the empowering truth. You can break this pattern. Not by chasing them, not by withdrawing in resentment, but by learning to anchor yourself. You can't make someone feel safe if you don't feel safe within yourself. Secure energy isn't about what you say to them. It's about what you believe about you. It's about moving from, "I hope they choose me," to, "I choose peace," no matter what they do. Because when your energy is grounded, your relationships transform. You stop reacting and start responding. You stop chasing approval and start embodying self-respect. Let's go deeper into something most people never pause to question. When we talk about secure energy, it's easy to assume it's just about staying calm or appearing confident. But that's surface level. True security isn't a performance, it's an embodiment. It's the quiet steadiness that comes from no longer making someone else's behavior the narrator of your story. It's the shift from, I hope they choose me, to, I already choose myself. Because the truth is, most of what we call love isn't love. It's survival disguised as devotion. It's the anxious need to earn closeness, to prove our worth through overfunctioning, to calm our own inner chaos by managing someone else's. See, what's really happening beneath the chase isn't about romance. It's about regulation. When you feel someone pulling away, your nervous system interprets that as danger. It doesn't care about attachment theory or emotional boundaries. It just wants safety. So you reach out, you text, you explain, you overanalyze, but those actions aren't born from love. They're born from fear. Fear of loss, fear of invisibility, fear of being too much or not enough. And that fear leaks through everything you do. Your words may sound kind, but the energy beneath them screams, please don't abandon me. That's what avoidant people feel, even if you never say it. Here's the irony. The harder you try to prove your value, the less you appear grounded. And groundedness is the very thing that makes you emotionally magnetic. Think of it like standing in front of a mirror that reflects not your appearance, but your emotional vibration. When you're rooted in fear, the reflection is blurry, unstable, uncertain. When you're rooted in self-worth, it's clear, calm, luminous. People can feel that clarity before you even speak. Secure energy isn't loud, it's unmistakable. But how do you get there? It starts with awareness, not avoidance of your own pain. Most of us are trying to regulate our anxiety by controlling connection. We text to stop the discomfort of not knowing. We explain ourselves to ease the fear of being misunderstood. We chase to escape the silence. But healing begins when you can sit in the discomfort without scrambling to fix it. When you can feel the anxiety rise in your chest, and instead of acting on it, you breathe, you pause, you remind yourself, this feeling won't kill me, and it doesn't define me. That's the beginning of emotional mastery, the ability to witness your own reactivity without being ruled by it. Because real power in relationships doesn't come from control, it comes from composure. And composure isn't coldness. It's warmth without chaos. It's being able to say, I want connection, but I don't need it to feel whole. When you can do that, you become emotionally self-sustaining. You stop seeking safety in someone's response and start creating it within your own presence. Now, let's talk about something subtle but crucial: energy coherence. It's when what you say, what you feel, and how you act are aligned. If you say you're fine, but your tone drips with disappointment, that's incoherence. If you say you're giving space, but secretly count the minutes until they return, that's incoherence. Your words might sound mature, but your energy betrays the truth. Avoidant people feel that incongruence immediately. It's why they retreat. Not because they sense your weakness, but because they sense your internal war. When your inner and outer worlds align, something beautiful happens. You stop leaking need. You stop trying to convince anyone of your value. You start radiating it. And that radiance doesn't beg. It invites. It doesn't demand, it allows. Think again of the lighthouse. Stable, unmoving, radiating light, not because it's trying to be seen, but because shining is its nature. That's the essence of secure energy. It doesn't chase safety, it becomes it. This is the part where people often say, but if I stop trying, won't I lose them? Maybe. Or maybe you'll finally discover who's truly meant for you. Because love that only survives under pressure isn't love, it's dependency. When you build emotional strength, you create a filter. People who thrive on chaos won't find comfort in your calm, but those who are ready for real intimacy will recognize it immediately. They'll feel the difference between being chased and being chosen. So your work isn't to make someone stay. It's to make yourself so internally steady that whether they stay or go, your peace remains. Because when your energy stops grasping, your life starts attracting. That's not a strategy, it's nature. The universe mirrors your state of being. When you lead with fear, it gives you uncertainty. When you lead with trust, it gives you alignment. And that's the real secret. The energy you lead with writes the story you live in. Let's talk about something that quietly runs the show in almost every relationship you've ever had: emotional safety. You might think safety is about what happens on the outside, about how someone treats you, about the words they use or the promises they make. But real safety, the kind that actually allows love to grow, begins long before that. It begins in your nervous system. It's the invisible contract between your body and your mind that says, I'm okay, even if they're not okay. Here's where it gets complicated. When you've been wired for anxiety, silence feels like rejection, distance feels like punishment, and uncertainty feels like danger. So you chase reassurance not because you're needy, but because your body is trying to regulate through someone else. It's not love, it's survival dressed as connection. You don't want the person, not really. You want the feeling of being safe. That's why you overanalyze every text, replay every interaction, and read between lines that were never written. Your nervous system is searching for patterns of safety it never learned to create on its own. Now contrast that with someone emotionally avoidant. Their body has learned the opposite lesson, that closeness equals risk. When things get intimate, their system screams danger. It's not personal, it's programming. They pull away not to punish you, but to protect themselves from being engulfed. To you, that withdrawal feels like rejection. To them, it feels like breathing. And this is where the collision happens. Your anxiety wants to move closer just as their fear needs to pull back. You're both trying to feel safe, just in opposite directions. The tragic irony is that both people think the other is the problem. The anxious one says, if they just open up, I could relax. The avoidant one says, if they just calm down, I could breathe. But neither can give the other what they don't yet possess themselves: internal regulation. Safety isn't something you receive, it's something you generate. It's built through presence, boundaries, and truth. That's why the work isn't about fixing them. It's about learning how to hold yourself steady when their fear activates yours. When they go silent, can you stay anchored instead of spiraling? When they pull away, can you breathe instead of chase? Because that moment, the space between your impulse and your response, is where transformation begins. You can't change the pattern if you keep reacting from the same wound. Think about it like emotional gravity. When you're anxious, your energy is frantic, pulling everything toward it. You send texts that are really coded pleas for reassurance. You offer affection that's laced with fear, but when you're secure, your energy becomes grounding. It doesn't demand, it stabilizes. The avoidant person may still retreat, but they'll start to notice something different. You're not collapsing. You're not begging. You're just there, calm, open, unwavering. And that's the first moment they feel safe enough to come closer. Safety doesn't mean pretending you're unaffected. It means being able to feel everything: fear, longing, uncertainty, without letting it control your actions. It's sitting in the discomfort and realizing, I can survive this feeling without abandoning myself. That's emotional adulthood. That's the difference between reacting and responding. Here's the thing most people miss. Connection isn't built through constant closeness. It's built through consistent truth. You don't have to agree on everything or always be in sync. What builds trust is knowing that even when it's uncomfortable, you'll be honest. That when someone says, I need space, you don't weaponize it or guilt them, you honor it because you trust your own ability to self-soothe. This is what it means to become emotionally self-sufficient. Not cold, not detached, but whole. You still want connection. You just don't chase it to avoid your own reflection. You begin to understand that relationships are not cures for loneliness. They're mirrors for growth. Every time someone pulls away, every time you feel unseen, you're being handed an invitation. Can I meet myself here? Can I be the stability I keep searching for in others? When you start answering yes to that question, your energy changes. You stop leading with anxiety and start leading with groundedness. And something beautiful happens. People who thrive on chaos lose interest, while people who crave depth feel drawn to you. You become, in a way, untouchable. Not because you've walled yourself off, but because your peace is no longer up for negotiation. So, when you think of emotional safety, remember this: it's not found in someone's consistency, their affection, or their reassurance. It's found in your ability to hold your center when all of that wavers. Because the most powerful person in any relationship isn't the one who controls. It's the one who remains calm when everything else shakes. And that calm, that grounded self-trust, is the kind of security no one can take from you. Let's talk about something we rarely acknowledge: the addiction to emotional intensity. Most of us confuse intensity with intimacy, chaos with chemistry, drama with depth. We chase the highs and lows because they make us feel alive, not realizing that what we're actually addicted to is the adrenaline of uncertainty. That rush when they text back, the anxiety when they don't, the constant cycle of hope and doubt. It becomes a pattern so familiar that peace feels foreign. We say we want stability, but the moment it arrives, it feels dull, almost empty, because our nervous system has learned to equate love with tension. This is the quiet truth about emotional unavailability. It's not always about the other person. Sometimes it's about the part of you that still mistakes unpredictability for passion. The part that's scared of calm because calm feels like boredom. You crave connection, but you chase excitement. You want safety, but you seek spark. And the cruel irony is that what you call chemistry is often just your trauma recognizing itself in someone else. When you meet someone who's emotionally avoidant, your body doesn't just react to them, it reacts to the pattern. It feels familiar. Their distance pulls you in. Their silence hooks your curiosity. Their inconsistency feeds your hope. You start to believe that if you can just get through to them, if you can just make them stay, it will prove you're finally worthy of love. But that's not love. That's repetition. It's your nervous system trying to rewrite an old story with a new character. To break that pattern, you have to stop craving the emotional roller coaster and start valuing emotional regulation. Real connection isn't built on fireworks. It's built on trust, on peace, on steady presence. That doesn't mean it's boring. It means it's sustainable. The drama may light you up for a moment, but it also burns you out. It drains your self-esteem, your clarity, and your sense of self. Every high becomes shorter. Every low becomes heavier. And soon you're mistaking exhaustion for love. Here's the shift. Peace is not the absence of passion. It's the presence of safety. It's the ability to be fully seen without the constant fear of losing the connection. It's not the rush of being chosen. It's the calm of knowing you don't have to chase. When you start healing, that peace will feel uncomfortable at first. You'll want to stir something, test something, push something, anything to recreate the familiar chaos. But that discomfort is proof you're breaking a pattern. Let me give you an image. Imagine your nervous system like a home. For years, the lights flickered, the floorboards creaked, storms came through the roof. You got used to that noise. It became normal. Then one day, you move into a new space, solid walls, soft light, quiet air, and you can't sleep. It feels too still. You don't trust it. You start missing the chaos because the chaos, at least, was predictable. That's what healing feels like. You miss the storm even while learning to love the calm. So how do you stay in that calm when every cell in your body is screaming to run back to what's familiar? You practice presence. You notice the urge to chase, and you breathe through it instead. You name the discomfort for what it is, a withdrawal from emotional addiction. You remind yourself that peace doesn't need proof. The person who's right for you won't make you beg for reassurance. They won't disappear to keep your attention. They'll stay. And at first, that steadiness won't feel exciting. It'll feel safe. But give it time. Safety becomes serenity, and serenity becomes strength. When you start to choose peace over chaos, something radical happens. Your energy shifts from grasping to grounded. You stop auditioning for love. You start observing. You become more curious about how someone makes you feel after the spark fades than how fast they light the fire. That's maturity. It's when you realize that connection built on adrenaline will never outlast connection built on alignment. So, if you find yourself drawn again and again to people who keep you guessing, ask yourself not, why do they do this? But why does this feel normal to me? The answer will lead you back to the younger version of you who learned that love meant inconsistency. Your job now isn't to change them. It's to teach that younger version what real safety feels like. And here's the beauty of that shift. Once you experience emotional peace, chaos stops looking like passion. It starts looking like pain. You no longer crave the people who make you question your worth. You crave the ones who remind you of it, the ones who make you feel seen, not small, the ones who bring you calm, not confusion. Because love was never meant to be a storm. It was meant to be a steady flame, one that warms you, not one that burns you down. There's a quiet moment that comes in everyone's healing when you realize that the chase is over, not because you finally caught what you were running after, but because you've stopped running altogether. At first, that silence feels strange. You wake up one morning and notice you haven't checked your phone. You haven't rehearsed a conversation in your head. You're not waiting for their message to dictate your mood. And it feels both freeing and terrifying, like standing on solid ground after years of balancing on a moving train. That moment is the beginning of self-ownership, the place where you stop needing to be chosen and start choosing yourself. See, for a long time, you thought connection meant merging. You gave so much of yourself away that you mistook self-sacrifice for love. You called it devotion, but what it really was fear. Fear that if you stopped giving, you'd stop being valued. That's what happens when love and approval become entangled. You start believing that love must be earned, that affection must be maintained like a fragile truce. But real love doesn't demand performance. It doesn't crumble when you set a boundary. It doesn't vanish when you rest. Here's the truth most of us avoid. If someone only feels close to you when you're overextending, they're not connecting with you. They're connecting with your compliance. And that's not intimacy, that's transaction. The antidote to that isn't rebellion or coldness, it's clarity. It's remembering that your worth isn't a prize to be won. It's a fact that doesn't need negotiation. When you start to live from that truth, your energy changes. You no longer contort yourself to fit into someone's emotional capacity. You stop shrinking to make others comfortable. You stop editing your needs so you won't seem too much. Instead, you begin to take up your rightful space, not loudly, but steadily, like roots growing beneath the surface. That's what real confidence feels like. It's not arrogance, it's quiet alignment. It's the calm that comes from no longer abandoning yourself to keep the peace. But this isn't an instant transformation. It's a slow, steady unlearning. Because the truth is, self-abandonment often feels easier than self-respect. It's easier to chase approval than to face the silence that follows when you stop. That silence is where your old identity begins to dissolve. You start asking questions that have no quick answers. Who am I without someone to fix, without someone to prove myself to, without someone to keep choosing me? At first, you'll feel disoriented. That's normal. You've spent years defining yourself through someone else's reaction. Now you're learning to define yourself through your own reflection. This is where the work deepens, because reclaiming your energy isn't just about pulling it back from others. It's about reinvesting it in yourself. It's about creating a life so full, so meaningful, that you no longer crave validation like oxygen. You begin to notice the small moments again, the sunlight warming your skin, the sound of your own laughter, the satisfaction of keeping a promise you made to yourself. You realize that peace isn't found in someone else's arms. It's found in your own presence. That's when self-trust starts to rebuild, quietly, like a heartbeat. And self-trust is magnetic. It's the foundation of every healthy connection because it tells the world, I am whole, and I will not trade my wholeness for attention. People will feel this shift. Some will be drawn to it, others will resist it because your calm will expose their chaos. But you won't need to convince anyone anymore. You won't chase, you won't perform. You'll simply embody the kind of energy that says, I am not here to be completed, I am here to be met. That's the new kind of intimacy you start to attract once you stop chasing. It's no longer about finding someone who fills your gaps. It's about meeting someone who stands beside you in their own fullness. Two complete people choosing connection, not clinging to it. That's not fantasy. It's freedom. And it all starts with this one, simple truth. Peace is not passive. It's power under control. It's the decision to stop giving your energy to what keeps you small and start investing it in what helps you expand. Because when you stop chasing, you don't lose love. You make space for the kind that was meant for you all along. There's a moment in every healing journey that feels like standing between two worlds. One foot still in the old pattern, the familiar chaos, the craving, the overthinking, and the other reaching toward a quieter, steadier way of being. It's a strange in-between. You know too much to go back, but not enough to feel fully free. That's the stage where growth gets real, because it's not glamorous, it's not cinematic, it's repetitive, uncomfortable, and deeply revealing. This is the part where your nervous system starts to detox from emotional dependency. You've stopped chasing, but the impulse still whispers. You've learned to stay calm, but the silence still stings. You've built boundaries, but a part of you still wonders if they'll come back once you've stepped away. That's what healing feels like. Your body catching up to the truths your mind already knows. See, most people assume that healing means feeling better, but the truth is healing often feels worse before it feels peaceful, because you're dismantling habits that once kept you safe, even if they hurt you. You're learning to sit with emotions you used to outsource. You're building tolerance for uncertainty, for distance, for not knowing. That's emotional strength, not the absence of pain, but the ability to face it without collapsing. Let's get honest. Part of you misses the chaos. It gave you something to fix, someone to prove yourself to, a storyline to keep you occupied. You miss the adrenaline of it, the validation of being needed, even if it drained you. But nostalgia isn't love. It's attachment to a familiar pain. What you're really missing is the version of yourself that still believed love had to be earned. And letting go of that version is a kind of grief. Grieving the chase means grieving who you were in it. The anxious one, the fixer, the peacemaker, the one who said it's fine while breaking inside, the one who gave too much and called it loyalty. You can't rush that grief. You have to honor it, hold it, let it teach you. Because every time you resist the urge to return to what hurt you, you're rewiring your sense of safety. You're teaching your body that peace is not the absence of stimulation, it's the presence of stability. And here's where a deeper truth starts to settle in. Love that costs your peace is too expensive. Always. You begin to realize that no matter how strong the chemistry, no matter how magnetic the pull, if it consistently leaves you anxious, uncertain, or unseen, it's not connection, it's confusion. Healthy love doesn't ask you to shrink. It doesn't require you to prove. It invites you to rest. When you start to taste that kind of love, whether it's from a friend, a partner, or even yourself, you'll notice it feels quieter. There's no constant guessing, no emotional whiplash. It's not a high, it's an exhale. And that calm might scare you at first because peace feels suspicious when all you've known is survival. But stay with it. Peace has layers. The more you sit in it, the deeper it roots. Eventually, you stop equating stillness with emptiness. You start realizing that boredom isn't always a lack of stimulation. It's space. Space for creativity, for clarity, for your own voice to return. You begin to fill that space not with people, but with purpose. You start reading again, writing again, laughing without waiting for permission. You begin to feel at home in your own company. That's when you know the healing has taken root. When solitude no longer feels like punishment, but like restoration. Here's the paradox. The moment you stop chasing love is usually the moment it finds you. Not because you've mastered some strategy or played it cool, but because your energy has shifted from seeking to radiating. You no longer approach relationships with the question, will they stay? But with, does this feel peaceful? And that single question will save you years of heartache. Because in the end, the goal was never to stop loving. It was to love differently. From wholeness, not hunger. From choice, not compulsion. From clarity, not chaos. You stop trying to earn connection and start embodying it. You stop settling for sparks that burn out and start choosing flames that last. So if you're in that middle place right now, the space between who you were and who you're becoming, don't rush it. The in-between is sacred. It's where your old self falls away and your new self begins to breathe. One day you'll look back and realize that this quiet chapter, the one that felt the most uncertain, was actually the most powerful of all, because it's the part where you stopped chasing love and started becoming it. There comes a time when you begin to realize that love, real, healthy love, is not something that demands constant reassurance. It's not the daily test of someone's devotion, not the invisible measuring of who gives more or who cares less. It's quieter, simpler, more grounded. But to reach that understanding, you first have to walk through the fire of your own expectations, the illusions you've built around what love should feel like. Because for most of us, love was never just love. It was validation. It was identity. It was proof that we were finally enough. You learn this the hard way, by mistaking intensity for importance, chaos for connection. You believed the butterflies were a sign of something profound, when really they were your nervous system warning you that you were entering familiar danger. And for a long time, you called that excitement. You called it chemistry, because no one told you that peace can feel boring when you've lived most of your life in emotional survival. The truth is, what we often call falling in love is really the collision of two wounds searching for safety. We romanticize the tension, the unpredictability, the pull and push dynamic because it mimics something ancient in us. The hope that this time, maybe love will finally rewrite the story of abandonment. But love was never meant to be a battlefield. It was meant to be a homecoming. When you begin to heal, you start noticing how often your old patterns try to seduce you back. The part of you that used to crave approval will whisper, just check their message one more time. The part that feared rejection will say, if you explain yourself better, maybe they'll understand. But now you see the game for what it is, a loop designed to keep you small, always waiting, always adjusting. Healing doesn't mean you stop feeling the pull. It means you no longer mistake that pull for love. Real love doesn't require you to lose yourself in order to keep it. It doesn't ask you to shrink to fit someone else's comfort. It doesn't silence your needs or punish your truth. Real love meets you where you are and invites you to expand. It sees your boundaries not as walls, but as doorways to deeper trust. It doesn't fear your independence. It celebrates it. Because mature love understands that connection can only thrive where both people are free. And that freedom begins inside you. It's the moment you realize that emotional availability isn't just about who you attract. It's about who you allow yourself to be. You cannot receive the kind of love you don't yet know how to give to yourself. If you're still withholding compassion from your own mistakes, you'll always feel uneasy around someone else's forgiveness. If you still shame your needs, you'll misinterpret care as pity. You'll keep searching for partners who mirror your inner conflict instead of your wholeness. This is where emotional maturity begins, when you stop waiting for someone else to regulate your emotions, when you stop outsourcing your worth to their response, when you start building a relationship with yourself that's based not on perfection but on presence. You learn to soothe your own disappointment, to honor your own boundaries, to offer yourself the empathy you once begged others to provide. That's not isolation, it's integration. As you grow into that steadiness, your relationships naturally shift. You stop being impressed by intensity. You start noticing consistency. You stop craving apologies that never come. You start appreciating effort that doesn't need to be asked for. You stop chasing closure and start creating it. because now you understand that peace doesn't come from getting answers. It comes from accepting that sometimes the story ends without one. And that acceptance isn't weakness, it's liberation. It means you no longer need to win at love to feel worthy of it. You no longer fear loss because you no longer equate it with failure. You know that endings don't erase value, they reveal lessons. You start moving through relationships with open hands instead of clenched fists, knowing that what's meant for you doesn't require a grip, only grace. When you reach that stage, something shifts profoundly in the way you love. You no longer seek people to complete you. You seek people to grow with. You no longer ask, do they want me? But do we bring out the best in each other? You no longer confuse longing with loyalty. You love with choice, not compulsion, with eyes wide open, not blinded by fear. That's what true emotional alignment feels like. It's not the thrill of uncertainty. It's the quiet confidence of mutual presence. It's the steady rhythm of two people who don't need to perform to be seen. It's not perfect. It's not dramatic. It's real. And once you've tasted that kind of peace, chaos will never taste like love again. There's a moment, quiet but undeniable, when you realize that peace is not something you stumble upon. It's something you choose moment by moment, even when it feels unnatural. Especially then, because peace isn't the absence of emotion, it's the mastery of it. It's learning how to stay steady in the storm instead of trying to stop the rain. And that, more than anything, is what separates a healed heart from a reactive one. For so long, you probably believed that emotional calm would come once people finally started treating you right, once they stopped withdrawing, once they showed up, once they gave you the certainty you craved. But now you see it clearly. Waiting for peace through someone else is a life sentence of anxiety. True calm begins the moment you stop outsourcing your emotional stability. It's when you stop saying, I'll be okay and start saying, I'm okay even now. The truth is, most people never learn to hold their own emotions. They either explode or suppress. They live between overexpression and silence, between over-explaining and disappearing. But emotional mastery is the space between those extremes, the stillness that lets you feel without drowning in the feeling. It's what allows you to stay kind when you're hurt, clear when you're triggered, and compassionate when you're misunderstood. That's what secure energy looks like in real life. It's not loud, it's not dramatic, it's calm clarity. When you begin to embody that calm, something subtle but powerful changes in your relationships. You no longer react to distance with panic. You no longer respond to silence with over-effort. You stop trying to fill every space with words. You stop trying to prove your worth in moments of doubt. Instead, you let people reveal themselves. You give them space to show how they handle disconnection. And that observation tells you everything you need to know, more than any confession ever could. See, emotional maturity doesn't mean you stop feeling. It means you stop negotiating your self-worth every time you do. You can love deeply without collapsing. You can be disappointed without dramatizing it. You can care without controlling. And that balance, where you can hold both empathy and boundary, is where your real power lives. Because love without self-respect isn't love, it's dependency. And boundaries without compassion aren't boundaries, they're walls. Real maturity is knowing when to hold space and when to let go. It's realizing that detachment isn't indifference, it's self-respect, expressed through restraint. It's the quiet strength that says, I can love you and still protect my peace. That kind of love is magnetic because it's not built on fear. It doesn't chase, it doesn't demand, it doesn't perform, it simply is. It gives the other person the freedom to be themselves without the weight of your expectations. And that freedom, paradoxically, is what allows intimacy to grow. Because people open up where they feel safe, not where they feel analyzed, pressured, or needed as proof of worth. Now here's the uncomfortable part. Maintaining that emotional balance means learning to live with uncertainty. And that's where most people struggle. The human mind craves closure, definition, guarantees. But love doesn't work like that. It's fluid. alive, unpredictable. You can't make it stay by holding tighter. You can only invite it by being real. And that means being okay with not knowing where things are headed, not knowing how someone feels every second, not knowing if the connection will last. Instead of fearing uncertainty, you begin to respect it. You start to see that not everything unfinished is broken. Some spaces are meant to breathe, some silences are meant to reveal. You learn to trust the unfolding without needing to control it. And in that trust, your energy softens. The anxious grasping fades. The urge to chase dissolves. You find that you can stand in the middle of the unknown without losing your center. That's not indifference, that's mastery. Think of it like standing in the ocean. Before, every wave knocked you off balance. You fought the tide, tried to predict it, control it. But now you've learned to move with it. You know how to bend without breaking, how to float without fear. You trust that even if the water rises, you won't drown, you'll breathe. That's what emotional safety within yourself feels like. And once you've built that inner safety, you stop craving the kind that comes from outside. You still appreciate connection, of course. You still love deeply, still give freely, but your peace no longer depends on reciprocity. You can love someone and let them go. You can care about someone and not chase them. You can want closeness without fearing distance, because your sense of wholeness doesn't live in their hands anymore. It lives in yours. So, if there's one truth to carry forward from all of this, it's this. Peace isn't found when life becomes easy. It's found when you stop running from the parts of you that can handle the hard. It's the still voice inside that says, I'm safe in the unknown. I'm steady in the change. I'm whole, even when things are not. That's what it means to be free, not untouchable, not detached, but grounded enough to love without losing yourself. Because in the end, the goal was never to stop feeling. It was to stop fearing your own feelings. And once you master that, no storm can take your peace again.